Vin Ballin's back. Let's react. Right now, we're gonna react to the weirdest NBA trade I've ever seen by Jimmy High Roller, and we already know that it's gonna be about James Harden and Ben Simmons. So let's go.
Well, it happened. I cannot believe it actually happened. Ben Simmons is no longer with the 76ers, and just 13 months into his time with the Nets, James Harden is gone. What could have easily been the greatest big three in NBA history has quickly become a cautionary tale for the rest of the league.
Yeah,
And
that's true.
the era of the super team is coming to an end. If you told me 2 years ago that Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, and James Harden would all be on the same team, I wouldn't believe you. I would not believe that other teams would allow this cheat code of a team to even happen. Now, if you told me that Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, and James Harden would all be on the same team and that they would never win a championship, I would assume that the entire league folded and ceased to exist in the middle of their title run. That would be the only logical explanation. A team this overpowered isn't even supposed to exist. Nobody can compete with this. And yet, after a season and a half, non-stop rumors, and unfulfilled potential, this Nets trio is already a thing of the past, with absolutely nothing to show for it. After months of constant trade rumors, the Nets...
Yeah, but I don't think that it's not because that they played bad, but it's mostly because of their injuries. Like Kyrie Irving went down, and James Harden had an hamstring injury, and they couldn't beat the Bucks. Well, which is understandable too. But since the Bucks made it and they won the championship, so yeah, it's kind of sad though. It's kind of sad because this is probably one of the greatest big threes, honestly.
Sixers dropped a bomb on the NBA world yesterday in a trade that featured James Harden for Ben Simmons, Seth Curry, Andre Drummond, and 2 first-round picks. Now, first things first, both teams just got better. Ben Simmons was never going to suit up for the Sixers again, so they had to find a valuable asset to trade for him. Did they give up too much for James Harden? Probably, but with Embiid playing out of his mind for the last 2 seasons, the Sixers knew they needed to go all in before they squandered away Embiid's best years. And they now have a roster that will compete with any team in the league.
Yeah,
And the Nets just got the extra...
Honestly, I think this is a win-win situation for both teams. And the first thing that I thought of is that James Harden and Embiid is going to be a dangerous duo. And the second thing is that Ben Simmons is going to shine in Brooklyn. Like, honestly, think about that. Brooklyn has Kyrie, Seth Curry, Kevin Durant, Ben Simmons, and Andre Drummond, who is an amazing rebounder. So basically, they got an amazing defender in Ben Simmons, a sniper in Seth Curry, and a great rebounder in Andre Drummond. That's a good team right there. That's a contender right there. Now for the Sixers, James Harden and Embiid. Since James Harden is an amazing passer too, yeah, I think that's gonna be a dangerous duo. And Paul Millsap as a veteran, yeah, I don't know what could happen. It's exciting, honestly.
and defense they desperately needed while picking up 2 first-round picks in the process. This whole trade is weird because at first glance it kind of looks like a lose-lose. A drama queen who refuses to play in exchange for a former MVP, potentially 5 players for 1, doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But when you get into the details, this is actually the best case scenario for both teams considering their circumstances. But for a moment, can we discuss the magnitude of this team's downfall? The fact that this trio is possibly the biggest what-if team in NBA history. Including the playoffs, the Durant, Irving, Harden trio have been on the Nets for a total of 126 games. Out of those 126 games, all 3 stars
16,
have suited up and played together in just 16.
Yeah, exactly. 16.
Just 16 games out of 126. And in those 16 games, the Nets went 13-3, which means when they all played together, they won 81% of their games. Of course, we rarely got to see this since this big three never played with each other for more than a few games at a time. And that, my friends, is tragic. If this big three could have stayed healthy and put their egos to the side, they could have easily won multiple championships. Think about how close the Nets were to beating the eventual champs last season in the Bucks with no Kyrie and a crippled James Harden. If KD were a size 10.5 in men's shoes, they all might just be sitting on a championship together right now. If a young, inexperienced OKC team with Westbrook, Harden, and KD is a massive what-if in NBA history, what does that make this Nets trio? Because the fact is, when these 3 superstars played together, there wasn't a team in the entire league that could compete with them. But before you know it, this big three doesn't even exist anymore. Think about the series of events that led to this moment. Ben Simmons passes up on an easy basket, Doc Rivers publicly doubts him in front of millions, Simmons is pissed and refuses to play the following season, and he's now available to trade. James Harden goes down with an injury in the playoffs, then Kyrie goes down with an injury, KD steps on the three-point line, and the Bucks win the series. The Nets have to regroup the following season, but they can't because Kyrie is sitting out every single game. James Harden is annoyed by this, and he wants out of Brooklyn. Kevin Durant gets injured in the middle of an MVP-caliber season, and now the Nets are really in trouble, and the Sixers capitalize on this opportunity by trading one disgruntled employee for another. If Harden doesn't get hurt in last season's playoffs, if Kyrie doesn't get hurt, if Durant doesn't step on the three-point line, if Kyrie gets vaccinated, if Durant doesn't get injured, if Ben Simmons isn't afraid to dunk on a 6-foot-tall point guard, if even one of these things doesn't happen, I have a feeling this trio exists today. I bet they eventually...
Yo, and one thing that I don't like about NBA fans is that they really made fun of Ben Simmons' mental health. Bro, you don't make fun of a person's mental health, bro.
Ring, and the legacy of three all-time great players changes forever. In fact, I think all things considered, this season-and-a-half-long saga could not have gone any worse. Anything that could have went wrong. And yet, somehow, because of this specific set of circumstances, the Nets are now in a better situation after trading away a former MVP.
I agree with
that. But you want to know who's made it out better than anyone in the midst of this league-altering transaction? The most unlucky superstar of the decade, Joel Embiid. Joel Embiid has had to sit back and put up with Simmons' antics for years. Embiid has never complained. He's never turned on Ben or the organization. He just put his head down and got better and better every single season. He's had to shapeshift and mold his game around Ben since Embiid is capable of this, being that he's the better and more versatile player of the two. Of course, you wouldn't know this since the Sixers front office has bent over backwards to please Ben, and the fact that just 2 seasons ago there were legitimate arguments as to who the Sixers should build their team around. But alas, here we are in 2022, with James Harden on his third team in 2 seasons, the Nets' big three coming and going in the blink of an eye, and Ben Simmons finally getting his way and getting out of Philadelphia. You want to know what's worse than a moody NBA star who only plays half the time? 2 moody NBA stars who only play half the time. But with this trade completely shaking up the complexion of the East, we need to take a look at the bigger picture here. Super teams. Ever since the Celtics created the first modern super team in 2007, the NBA has been on this massive, perpetual hunt to land the biggest stars on the same team. The hunt really caught fire once LeBron and the Heat created the Big Three in Miami. And after watching this trio go to 4 straight NBA Finals, GMs and players around the league caught the super team bug. Forget chemistry, forget salary caps. Let's chase the best players and let's get them to sign with us by any means necessary, even if it destroys the future of our franchise for the next decade. And so it began. Super teams, or at least attempts to create these superstar lineups, started to pop up around the league. The rich got richer, while small market teams with little to offer fell further and further behind. The gap between good teams and bad teams grew larger, and 90% of regular season games were a foregone conclusion. The playoffs were in an even worse state. The first round became a graveyard for teams who were blissfully ignorant enough to think they even had a chance. And we all just sat around waiting for the finals matchup that we saw coming before the season even began. And then just a decade after the super team era began, we met the super team of all super teams. The already insanely great Golden State Warriors signed Kevin Durant, and the league pretty much conceded for the next 3 seasons. The concept of a super team had met its inevitable peak, and the moment it did, the league almost intuitively began to shift in another direction. Out of nowhere, the Raptors with just 1 star player won the NBA title. The following season, the Lakers with an all-time great 1-2 punch won the championship. And last season, Giannis and the Bucks proved that a superstar with the right pieces around him can win it all. The era of the super team is coming to an end, with player demands reaching an all-time high, huge injuries plaguing star players now more than ever before, and organizations being held hostage at the demands of superstars. The concept of a super team has become nearly impossible to maintain. If you look at the state that the NBA is in right now, all of the top teams have 1, maybe 2 all-star caliber players with a roster built around chemistry and skill sets and strengths and weaknesses and longevity. I think after seeing countless teams chase big names only to implode and tank the next 5 years of their franchise in the process with absolutely nothing to show for it, organizations have changed the blueprints for building and nurturing a successful team.
Yeah.
The downfall of the Nets' Big Three could be the nail in the super team coffin. 6 years ago, the Golden State Warriors set the golden standard. But that team was an anomaly.
Oh my
Four
God, that was
stars all
6
willing
years
to
ago?
play their role and not fuss and complain about it. Every single player
Man, I
doing
feel-
whatever it takes to win. We will never see another team like that. The Raptors didn't win their championship.
Yeah, honestly, bro, the 2017 Golden State Warriors, the whole Warriors dynasty with Kevin Durant, we were blessed to see that, honestly. Yeah, I did find them kind of like overpowered, but also blessed, bro. 'Cause that's a super team right there.
This way,
One of the greatest teams to watch too.
neither did the Lakers, and neither did the Bucks. And I think the demise of this Nets Big Three might just be the demise of the super team in the NBA. Hope you all enjoyed. And as always, until next time.
Right, you guys, that's it for today's video. So what do you guys think? Did you think the Sixers and the Nets made the right thing? Because for me, it's a win-win situation. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. Peace.